And welcome everybody. Hope you had a nice weekend. This week we will be learning on marketing principles applied to sport management, also known as sport marketing. You're probably much more aware of this topic than you can even understand right now, but we're going to be going through some of the major principles, some of the key terms, some of the issues, and how it all applies to business today. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So here are the key terms. Again, these are all in your book. They are highlighted through the chapter, so you have the opportunity to make sure that you know all of these. A really big one here, ambush marketing. We're going to talk about what that means, what that entails, and how it's utilized by competition to try to steal market share and distract customers away from the key marketing of an event or a product. Demographics, we'll talk about that. I'm sure you're probably familiar with what that word means already. Other things like the marketing mix. We're going to get into the 4/5 Ps of the marketing mix. Target markets, what that entails, as well as market segmentation. So again, make sure that you are familiar at least with all of these terms. So what is sport marketing? Simply put, sport marketing is the mix of activities designed to meet the wants and needs of a sport consumer. So sport marketing refers to several different types of marketing functions. The first being products such as equipment, apparel, footwear. Think about a product also being maybe the athletes that are down on the floor playing while you're at a game. For example, if you're at the Olympics and you're watching the USA play hockey, the players that are down on the ice, those are considered by many to be the product. Again, it's a little bit more ambiguous than with other products. For example, if I am marketing an Apple iPhone, that is very specifically a product. The phone is the product. A little bit different when it comes to sport, because the product could be the athletes. It actually could be the game itself. It could be the hockey pucks, could be the sticks and the other equipment that they're using as well. So the product is maybe a little bit more ambiguous. It can also be considered intangible, which is very different again from normal products, which are very tangible, meaning that you can touch them. You can't really touch a hockey match, but you can watch it. Other things, so services and experiences, these can be considered the attendance at a sporting match or participation. Again, it gets a little ambiguous here. Services and experiences as well as you're trying to describe them, but the way that I would like you to think about it is the product, think about the game itself, the actual physical act of that game. For the services and experiences, you can think about the people in the stands experiencing the sport, and all the experiential things that they have as part of that experience. The third are your entities, such as leagues, teams, or individuals. And then fourth and finally, the recruitment and retention of volunteers. Obviously, there's part of marketing that goes into the actual individuals that are making up putting that product or putting that service on. So, sport marketing, we talk a lot about target markets. Target markets are the group of consumers to whom a product is marketed. So, think about the who, the what, the when, the where, and the why, right? So, if we go to a hockey match, is it the same group of people or is that a different group of people that would be going to the opera, right? So, think about target markets, thinking about who is the general fan that a team or a league or a brand might be trying to market to, and even more so is, a different sport. So the same sport, but a different type of event, different marketing as well. So is the Olympic Games hockey marketed to differently than the NHL, different than NCAA hockey? And if so, what would that entail, right? Is the World Cup, which is coming to the United States this summer, how are they marketing that particular sport versus the MLS? And we could have a long argument or conversation around whether it's similar, whether it's different. But again, just think of target markets as who is specifically being marketed to, what is being marketed to them, when, where, and why. Okay. Sport broadcasting also has to do with sport marketing as well. In broadcasting, we're thinking of, things like ESPN, Fox Sports, NBC. Certainly, in streaming today, you can think about groups like Peacock or Hulu or Netflix. Obviously, they're all kind of part of this sport broadcasting thing too. So broadcasting, how is it being targeted to different people? And then you think about the sports sponsorship. So as you're watching a sporting event on an ESPN, what are the commercials that you see? Again, are those different than what you would see for somebody watching a soap opera, somebody watching, uh, maybe a reality TV show or a documentary? Are they the same? Are they different? If you haven't noticed before, think about when you're watching different programs or TV or whatever it may be. Watch what the advertisements are and then figure out if those are targeted to you because of who you are or because of what you watch or because of, things that you're talking about, et cetera. So it's very targeted now, and marketers have a much better ability to target markets towards different consumers. So this is very much the same way. For example, the ones that I've listed here, Nike, Honda, Airbnb, they are all big partners, corporate partners with the International Olympic Committee and the United States Olympic and Paralympic Committee, the USOPC, and the IOC. So all of those companies have direct sponsorships and partnerships with the Olympic Games. So as you're watching the Olympics that are on this week as well, you're going to see Nike quite a bit. You'll see Honda, you'll see Airbnb. Those change as well. So, the terms of these agreements change from company to company. When I was working with the USOPC, for example, instead of Honda, we had Toyota. And before Toyota, we had BMW was a sponsor before then. Instead of Airbnb, we had Hilton as our lodging sponsor. We also had IHG for a while, then Airbnb, obviously, with the shift of secondary housing markets and things like that. It's become a huge opportunity, especially as we lead into the LA Games. So think about that as we're going through this, or what type of companies would make sense to market to an event. What type of audience are they hoping to attract and what type of audience is already going to be watching that event. And then we have ambush marketing as well. So ambush marketing is essentially when someone is not a partner or a sponsor of an event, but they try to give the perception that they are. So, for example, if Nike is a sponsor of the Olympic Games and Adidas wanted to show up in Milan and pretend like they were the sponsor, they would be engaging in ambush marketing. A very, very famous example of that actually happened at the Olympic Games. Team USA was sponsored by Adidas at the time, and Nike in a parking garage next to an Olympic venue uh, set up basically a mini title town, which was also known as Nike Town. But there was Nike imagery. There were all sorts of Nike endorsements and brand activations that were there to give the perception to the outside consumer that Nike was a sponsor of the event, of the Olympic Games, but they didn't have to pay to be a sponsor, right? So as you can imagine how that would make groups like Adidas unhappy, there has to be certain restrictions in place, and there have to be certain levels of legality around events that are marked out very cleanly in sponsorship agreements so that we can limit, or that organizers can limit this ambush marketing. But there are several different types of opportunities and things that go into that. Another one was at the Barcelona Games. Michael Jordan very famously wore his Nike shoes or his Jordan shoes around his neck. Again, Nike was not a sponsor of the event, but Michael Jordan wore his Nikes around his shoulders, perceiving the fact that Nike and giving brand recognition and visibility at the event to Nike without having, to be able to, without having Nike to be able to pay for that or have to pay for that. So we'll talk a lot about ambush marketing as well. So when it comes to sport marketing, one individual that is very, very known, one of the most known pioneers of sport marketing is a guy named Bill Vack. So Bill Vack was the owner of several Major League Baseball teams, noticeably the Cleveland Indians at the time, now the Guardians, of course, the Chicago White Sox as well. So Bill Veeck was very known to basically do anything he could to engage fans and provide a fun atmosphere. And it's not to say that all sport marketing promotions or campaigns go well. Certainly not. You can see some of the examples that are here. Bill Veeck is known for having signed Larry Doby to the Cleveland Indians in 1947, which was just months after Jackie Robinson signed with the Brooklyn Dodgers, making him the first African American to participate in Major League Baseball, to be signed to Major League Baseball. Larry Doby became the first player in the American League to break the color barrier in the American League, signing with the Cleveland Indians. Bill Veeck was actually the man who made that possible. Bill Veeck is also known for encouraging Harry Carey to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." If you're not familiar, the very famous and long broadcaster of the Chicago Cubs, Harry Carey, who was known of being very, very eccentric, and but really looped in with the fans every seventh inning stretch, which is standard at any sort of baseball game that you go to. In between the seventh inning, the top and the bottom, they'll sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." It's baseball tradition. Harry Carey kind of made that known, and so every seventh inning stretch, he would either sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" or he would invite some sort of celebrity. In fact, the Cubs still do that, where they'll invite a celebrity to the booth to be able to sing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." So Bill Veeck is known for encouraging Harry Carey to do this. He also signed Eddie Goodell, which you can see in the picture here. Eddie was 3 foot 7 inches. Bill Veeck signed him to come play for the St. Louis Browns at the time. Quick fun fact: actually, one of my family members was actually the ball boy for the Chicago or the St. Louis Browns at the time, and so Eddie Goodell actually borrowed his uniform to go and play in his first major league game. You can see him right here standing in the batter's box in a major league game, um, 3 foot 7. So that was Bill Veeck's idea. Again, as I mentioned, not all great, not all marketing activities or activations are great, such as the case with the very infamous Disco Demolition Night. Bill Veeck actually had people participate in Disco Demolition Night at the end of disco, where people could bring in their old disco records. And after the game, they were allowed to throw them onto the field and burn them. And so, as you can imagine, a bunch of people that are kind of liquored up, throwing disco records and lighting them on fire. It turned into a very unsafe experience and situation for fans that were in attendance, and there was a lot of damage that was done. You've probably heard now of the Savannah Bananas. The Savannah Bananas are kind of the modern day barnstormers, which we talked about last week in the last week's lecture. But Jesse Cole, who is the owner and the founder of the Savannah Bananas, he is known to do very different things as it relates to baseball, but he is a marketer's genius. He, has really created a very unique brand centered around baseball. And while it is still baseball as a product, some of the things that he's done are very, very different. And therefore, he's able to create a much broader target audience than your traditional baseball fans. I've had several friends that have been to games before. They love to take their kids. The kids really enjoy it. So there's a lot of unique opportunity because of Jesse Cole and the Savannah Bananas. Again, that all kind of started with people like Bill Veeck. So in terms of early research in sports marketing, a guy named Matt Levine is very infamous, or sorry, famous around sports marketing. And just a quick note, you can actually see the picture over on the right-hand side of the screen of Disco Demolition Night. You can tell they're lighting records on fire on the field. It was very, very interesting, and there's a lot of case studies that have been done around Disco Demolition Night. But back to Mr. Levine, he's credited with kind of the formalization of customer research. He developed what he termed as an audience audit to capture different demographic and psychographic information on customers. He was also a pioneer in using intercepts, known as one-on-one on-site interviews, and focus groups, which were discussion groups involving 8 to 12 individuals with similar characteristics discussing a predetermined agenda. Those are very, very common in marketing today. You've probably participated in them before. Very rarely now will you go to a sporting event that you don't have some sort of a survey or feedback that the individual will try to get from you from that. If you took a flight, I know I take a lot of flights, and so United Airlines will always send me a post-flight survey asking about my experience. Very similar things to what Mr. Levine introduced in terms of sport marketing. Some of those things, the purposes that he was hoping to encounter are on page 62 in your books. Things like profiling the sport consumer, categorizing attendance behavior, try to figure out who was a good match for future ticket packages, to analyzing purchasing behavior as it relates to product extensions, merchandise concessions, to evaluate different operational aspects of sport product, such as parking, customer service, entertainment aspects, to measure interest in new concepts, to offer two-way communication with the target marketing or market, and to make sure that again that he could start to build on the relationship aspect of creating an opportunity to create repeat customers, which we'll talk a lot more about. He was also most known for his pass-by interviews, or also known as intercept interviews. These are on site, and it's basically understanding what the consumer thinks about certain things. This is really, really popular, and you may have known the Washington Commanders, who were formerly known as the Washington Redskins, and then the Washington football team before becoming the Commanders. The same thing was done with the Cleveland Indians, which are now known as the Cleveland Guardians. Basically, there was a public opinion survey that was created where people could offer their names, their perspective on what the team should be named, the new names, the new logos, the new color schemes. A lot of times, teams will factor in what the fans think into these things because they want to make sure that they're vested so that they'll buy the merchandising and they'll continue to support the team. So, pass by interviews or intercept interviews will typically provide some sort of a visual aid, and they'll get very real on the spot reactions to the visual aid that's provided. So, Matt Levine was really most known for creating these things, which continue to be utilized today. So the marketing mix are very much the controllable variables the company puts together to satisfy a target group. If you look at table 3.1 in your textbook on page 63, it talks a lot about the key differences in traditional marketing versus sports marketing. On the left-hand side, you can see the characteristics of traditional marketing. On the right-hand side, characteristics of sports marketing. The biggest things that are different are as such. So, for example, in sports marketing, the product is very much intangible, right? You're going to sit there and you watch the game, but you are trying to market an experience or a service much more than you're trying to market a very tangible product, right? And I know I said it earlier, but your Apple iPhone, for example, that is a very tangible object. Tangible meaning that you can touch it, you can hold it, you can feel it. The same thing is not the same with a sporting event, right? You're going to pay to go see a game. You're not going to be on the floor playing. You're going to be sitting in the stands watching it. You can't feel it. You can't experience it the same way that you can with a product such as an Apple iPhone. It's very much subjective and heavily experiential. I could have a very different experience than the person sitting right next to me. You know, if I'm a big baseball fan and my mom is not, then I'm probably going to have a much different experience at a baseball game than my mom will, right? So it's very subjective based off of point of view of the person. It's also very subjective based off of, for example, where you might be sitting at a game or what the outcome of the game might be. You know, is somebody going to have, somebody who's a really good fan, a really big fan, probably won't have as much fun at an event if their team loses 7-0 versus their team winning 3-2, right? It's going to be very different. The demand fluctuates widely as well, depending on a number of factors. For example, weekend games or Friday night games or primetime games, playoff games, good teams versus bad teams, time of year, whether school is in session for the kids or it's the summertime. There are so many different factors that go into it. You know, sometimes things like a really good player who's in town might draw more fans to a game, or perhaps a team might have more fans at a home game than they might have at an away game because of the travel that's associated with it. Maybe a team is really, really bad, or a team is really, really good. Those are all going to change the marketing that goes into a sporting event and therefore the demand that's there from the consumer. The product is simultaneously produced and consumed at the same time, meaning that if you go to a game, it's happening right in front of you. There's no script. There's nothing that's sitting there saying, "Hey, this is what's going to happen," like it is in a play, right? If you go to a play, chances are you know what's going to happen. There's going to be a break at certain times. For a sporting event, it is absolutely produced and consumed very simultaneously at the same time. The people who are producing the event have no clue what's going to happen. The people who are attending and consuming the event have no idea what's going to happen either. So therefore, it is very inconsistent and unpredictable, especially with sports like baseball. It could go into extra innings and it could last 5 hours, or it could be a pitcher's duel that lasts, an hour and 58 minutes. So it's very inconsistent, it's unpredictable. And that's part of its appeal too, is that people don't know what's going to happen. And then lastly, same thing, no control over the outcomes. So we don't know what's going to happen, which leads to some level of anticipation and excitement because we don't know what's going to happen. So, sport marketing mix, we also need to talk about the four, also known as the five P's. And you can see the last P sometimes is mixed together. So, those P's are the product, the price, the place, as well as the promotion of that, or public relations. Sometimes people keep public relations separate. In this case, we're going to factor it together, but you just need to know that all kind of layers together. So, just to reiterate this again, the product is the benefit the consumers seek from the experience, the service, or the product. Again, the players on a team at a baseball game or the game itself. The price, the cost of the attendance, it can be either direct or indirect. Direct costs might be the cost of the ticket or the cost of concessions. An indirect cost might be the time it takes for me to go to said game, right? The opportunity cost of that, meaning the value that I'm going to get out of it versus the cost I'm going to have to put into it. So if it is going to be me sitting in traffic for an hour, getting home late at night, and then I have an early morning the next day, there is a certain indirect cost that certain goes into that. The place where the product is actually consumed, and then the promotion slash the public relations. So how the event is actually advertised, sold, and delivered to the public the sponsorship that goes into said event, the print, the digital, the social media, which is all the craze today is the social media, as well as the broadcasting that goes into that as well. Other parts of the sports marketing mix are the segmentation. So segmentation entails identifying subgroups of the overall marketplace based on a variety of factors, including age, income level, ethnicity, geography, lifestyle, other tendencies as well. The sport product is nearly universal appeal, although it is super foolish to think that sport marketers are marketing their product to the entire population. So they still have to be very targeted and the types of people that they're looking to market to. A certain levels of target markets, might be the demographics, it might be the geographics, might be the psychographics of an individual, it might also be the product use. So, how are you marketing? Are you marketing season tickets to someone who lives halfway across the world and has to pay a significant money in investment to make it to a game? Or are you much better off paying, marketing a single game to that person? Same thing, are you going to be able to market season tickets to someone who's purchased season tickets for the last 20 years, perhaps lives in town and doesn't work nights and weekends? Other factors is the fan identification. So in terms of fan identification, we're looking at the level of commitment or cohesiveness with a brand or a team. The more somebody is invested into a team, a brand, the higher the level of the fan identification and the more targeted they will be in terms of marketing in terms of a targeted market. And such is the case on the other side as well. And then lastly, relationship management. So relationship management is essentially the aim of building mutually satisfying long-term relations with key parties, customers, suppliers, distributors, in order to earn and retain their business. I said this before, but it is the case. When it comes to sales or marketing, it's always cheaper and easier to retain current customers than it is to find new customers. And that's really, really important to remember. Once you get customers, you want to make sure that you do everything that you can within reason to keep those customers because it's always cheaper and easier to do so. The marketing lifestyle or life cycle, which we'll talk about in later chapters, it shows how difficult it can be most of the time to get a new customer because they're not aware. So once you have them there, once they've experienced it, usually it's a lot easier and cheaper to get them to come back. And there are ways of engagement that you already have that you may not with new potential new customers. So some of the key skills, just really quickly, and these are page 71 in your book. Communication, of course, to work in sport marketing, communication is important, not only with your consumers, but internally as well. Things like oral communication and written communication are very, very important. Data analysis, everything is based on data, and the more data you have on someone in sport marketing, the easier it is to market to that person, and the more targeted that you can be. So the more targeted that you can be, the more you're focused on talking to the right people and touching the right people. So therefore, data analysis certainly is important as it is in terms of things like the customer life cycle as well. Modern technology, things like customer relationship management services are really important too. Those allow you to track the customers that you have and start to collect data on those customers so you know things like when they like to come to games, how many games they currently come to, who in their family comes with them, things of that nature. People skills, you're going to be dealing with people, so always the ability to develop, motivate, and manage a diverse group of people is always important in terms of sports marketing. And then lastly, of course, sales ability as well as education, which you're currently doing right now, which is great. And then finally, some of the book says current issues. I prefer to think of it as trends rather than issues. Trends are things like esports, which are taking away a little bit from the traditional sport, with cord cutters as well. So esports and cord cutters kind of plays into the same thing. as well as future generations. It's just the new ways that you can consume areas of activity or types of activities. So these are all really important to think about as we're going through. Esports is allowing people to, be connected to a level of sport that is a non-traditional way. Are there fans that would rather sit at home and watch from their TV as opposed to paying money to go to a game? Where they're in their convenience of their own house or maybe a restaurant or a bar. They have everything that they need. They don't have to fight the crowd. They don't have to fight the traffic. Maybe they have a better view than they would have if they went to the event. So things like cord cutters are definitely factoring into that, as well as the future generations. Things of that sports are experiencing right now, such as youth participation, different concerns such as injuries, maybe more streams or more outlets for activity. So maybe people aren't participating in sport as much. So these are all current trends that are definitely in play and that we as sport marketers have to think about as we move forward. The Olympics, for example, is trying to do that very well. You may have seen in 2024, there were sports like breakdancing that was included into the Olympics. Breakdancing was brought in for a new generation to make the Olympic Games seem a little trendier, a little newer, a little younger, maybe a little bit cooler in certain ways, as some people might say. So these are things that sport needs to continue to think about. And will continue to do so. You've seen, I'm sure, groups like, if you are into esports, groups like the NBA, for example, that has invested. Every single NBA team now has an esports team that is affiliated, that is a part of the organization. So the Dallas Mavericks, for example, have an esports team that competes against other NBA teams, NBA esports teams. They are trained, they get paid money. There's a huge area of emphasis that goes into that, and it's something that's not going to go away. So we'll continue to monitor it. That's it for now. Again, this is all repetitive based off of chapter 3 in your book. So definitely make sure that you're reading the book and going back through this to be ready for your quiz, your participation, as well as your projects throughout the semester. And it's really important. Sports marketing is one of the most important aspects of sport. So we need to make sure that we have time to really try to conceptualize these things. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, as always, feel free to reach out and have a great week.